When I returned home with a motion letter to surprise my parents, I found the entire family celebrating my brother's small award instead. And when I tried to speak, they told me to let him have his moment, leaving me holding my success in silence. I cheated on my wife because I felt invisible in my own. There I said it. Not because she was bad to me, not because our marriage was failing, because I was a pathetic man, child who couldn't handle being second fiddle to my golden boy brother for one more day. The day it happened, I was holding my promotion like 34. 7 years of grinding, missing dinners, working weekends while Sarah held down our home, raised our twin boys, and never once complained about my absence. The envelope felt like redemption in my hands. I drove to my parents' house, practically bouncing in my seat. Finally, I had something that would make them look at me the way they looked at Marcus. My little brother who peaked in high school but somehow still got the family spotlight for breathing. I walked into a surprise party. Balloons, cake, the whole family crammed into mom's living room. My chest swelled. They knew. They actually knew about my promotion to me, a party. Then I saw the banner. Congratulations Marcus, Regional Sales Rep of the Month, Regional Sales Rep of the Month. I stood there holding a partnership offer worth more than Marcus made in 2 years, and they were throwing confetti over his participation trophy. Oh honey, you're just in time. Mom rushed over, not even glancing at the envelope in my white, knuckled grip. Marcus just got the most wonderful recognition at work. Isn't it amazing? I opened my mouth to speak, to share, to finally finale. I have my moment. Actually, I have some news too. Let brother finish his speech first. This is his day. His day. His day for getting a certificate that probably came with a $20 gift card. I watched him soak applause for mediocrity while my changing achievement burned a hole in my pocket. The same pattern since we were kids. Marcus gets a participation ribbon. I get ignored even when I won first place. I left without saying a word. Drove straight to Murphy's bar instead of going home to Sarah and the boys. I should have gone home. I should have celebrated with the people who actually mattered. But I didn't. I ordered whiskey and felt sorry for the pathetic excuse for a man I was becoming. That's where I met Lisa. She was beautiful, sure, but that's not why it happened. She listened. When I drunkenly rambled about always being overshadowed, she nodded and touched my arm and said, deserve better than that. Such simple words, but they hit like to my starved ego. We're married, she said, eyeing my ring. Complete. Sarah was an amazing wife. I was just too poisoned by family dynamics to see it. 1 drink became 3. 3 became going back to her apartment. Her apartment became the worst decision I ever made in my. I told it was just physical. Just one night to feel wanted, to feel like I mattered to someone. I told Sarah would never find out. I was wrong about everything. The next morning, I snuck home at dawn. Sarah was making pancakes for the boys, still in her pajamas, hair messy from sleep. She looked when I walked in and her face lit like Christmas morning. How did it go with parents? I can't wait to hear about their reaction. She remembered. Of course she remembered. Sarah remembered everything that mattered to me, even when I was 2 to see it. They were proud. I choked out, the lie burning my throat. I'm so proud of 2. She wrapped her arms around me and I could smell Lisa's perfume still clinging to my shirt. Senior partner. My husband, the senior partner. That should have been the end of it. One terrible mistake buried forever. But Lisa texted me that afternoon, then called, then showed at my office. I can't stop thinking about last night, she breathed into the phone. Make me feel things I've never felt before. More lies I wanted to hear, more for my ego. I should have blocked her number, should have told her it was a mistake. Should have gone home to my wife and kids and counted my blessings. Instead I met her for lunch, then coffee, then her apartment again. Each time I told it would be the last time. Each time I sank deeper into the quicksand of my own making. Sarah started asking questions when I worked late 3 nights in a row. Started looking at me differently when I changed my phone password. Started going quiet during dinner, watching me with those intelligent eyes that had always seen through my before. I was living a double, and I was terrible at it. Every kiss Lisa gave me felt like theft from my wife. Every lie I told Sarah felt like acid on my tongue. But I couldn't stop. The affair became mine and I was already addicted to the high of feeling important to someone, even if that someone was a fantasy I'd constructed in my head. The boys asked why Daddy was always working now. Sarah asked why I seemed so distant. My parents called to invite us to another celebration for Marcus getting his driver's license renewed or some equally groundbreaking achievement. I was drowning in my own choices and I was too proud and to reach for the preserver that was always right there in front of me. My wife, my kids, my real. Instead, I reached for Lisa's hand and pulled deeper underwater. The promotion letter sat unopened on my desk at home for 3 weeks. Sarah finally opened it and found out about my partnership from reading it herself. Why didn't tell me? She asked that night, confusion and written across her beautiful face. Because I was busy, someone else made me dinner every night. I thought but couldn't say. I wanted to wait until it was official. I said instead, another lie, another in the foundation of everything good in my. But I was already in too deep to stop now. The affair had momentum and I was too weak to break free. I had no idea that in 2 months, my entire world would implode in the most public way possible. I had no idea that Lisa was documenting everything. The beginning of the end started with a text message I wasn't supposed to see. I was in the shower when Sarah's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She called out from the kitchen. Henny, can check that. I'm expecting a call from Emma about the school fundraiser. I wrapped a towel around my waist and grabbed her phone, water still dripping from my hair. The message wasn't from Emma, it was from Lisa. A photo of us kissing in her apartment, with a message that made my turn to ace. He's never going to leave his wife. Time for plan B. My knees buckled. I sat down our bed, Sarah's phone trembling in my hands. Lisa had been texting my wife. How long? What had she said? I scrolled through the conversation, each message hitting me like a physical. Liz, I think should know what kind of man are married to. Sarah, who is this? Lisa, someone who cares about more than husband does. Then photos. So many photos, me leaving Lisa's building. Me kissing her in my car. Me holding her hand. I told Sarah I was having a business dinner. Sarah's responses grew shorter, more hollow. I don't believe point. This could be anyone. Stop sending me these. Please stop. But Lisa didn't stop. She sent screenshots of our texts, audio recordings of me saying things about Sarah that made me, videos I didn't even know she was taking. The final message was timestamped 20 minutes ago. Ask him about the promotion celebration he missed for me. That's when I heard Sarah's footsteps on the stairs. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't even delete the messages because what was the point? The truth was out, splattered across her phone screen like at a crime scene. Did Emma text? Sarah walked into our bedroom drying her hands on a dish towel. She looked at me sitting on the edge of our bed, except for a towel, holding her phone like it was about to. Sarah. I started but no other words came. She held out her hand for the phone. I gave it to her because I was a coward and couldn't find the strength to before she saw it herself. I watched her face change as she read, watched 20 years of love and trust crumble in real time. Her hand went to her throat. Her knees gave out and she sat down hard in the chair by our window. She didn't scream, didn't throw anything. Didn't cry, she just stared at the phone, scrolling through months of betrayal documented in high definition. How long? Her voice was barely a whisper. Sarah, how long? The first in her composure loud enough that I heard the boy's video game pause downstairs. 4 months, I said because lying seemed pointless now. She nodded like she was taking inventory. Since promotion. Since the night I went to tell my parents. She laughed in a sound like glass breaking. Chose her over celebrating with family. Over celebrating with me. Wasn't like that. Was exactly like that. She stood, suddenly calm again. Had a choice between coming home to people who love and going to a bar to feel sorry for. Chose the bar. Chose her. Chose this. The boys appeared in the doorway. Jake and Michael, 8 years old, still in their pajamas, looking scared. Why are yelling? Jake asked. Daddy needs to get dressed. Sarah said without taking her eyes off me. Then we're gonna have a family meeting. A family meeting. Christ, how to tell 8-year-olds that daddy is a piece of who away their family for a woman who didn't even care about him. After I put clothes on, we sat in the living room. Sarah on one end of the couch, me on the other, the boys between us like a human shield. Father has something to tell, she said. I looked at my sons' faces, so trusting, so innocent. They had no idea their world was about to end. Daddy made some very bad choices. I started, my voice cracking. I mommy very badly and now our family is gonna change. Getting divorced, Michael asked, always the practical one. I don't know yet, buddy, but daddy is gonna move out for a while so mommy and I can figure things out. Jake started crying. I don't want to move out. I don't want to either, but sometimes adults make mistakes that have big consequences. Sarah spoke without looking at any of us. Daddy chose to spend time with another woman instead of with our family. That's called cheating, it's not okay. The raw honesty was brutal but fair. I deserved brutal. Gonna marry Hurst? Michael asked. No, I said quickly. I love boys and mommy very much. I just made terrible choices. Jake sobbed. That was the question, wasn't it? Why did I down everything good in my for someone who was now trying to destroy what was left? Because daddy is selfish, and I said. And I'm sorry. By noon, I was packing a suitcase. By evening, I was in a hotel room staring at my phone as the story spread through our social circle like wildfire. Lisa hadn't just told Sarah, she told everyone. My brother Marcus called first. Dude, what the? Mom's getting calls from people saying cheated on Sarah. Then my law partners. We need to talk Monday morning about appropriate professional conduct. Then Sarah's sister Emma. We're a monster and if ever come near my sister or those boys again, I'll destroy. The worst part. Lisa was ignoring my calls now. Her job was done. She'd gotten her revenge for me not leaving my wife, and now I was alone with the wreckage. I spent the weekend in that hotel room, scrolling through Facebook posts about what a piece of I was, watching my professional reputation crumble in real time. Monday morning came with a text from Sarah. Boys have therapy at 3 actions cause this, pay for it. Then a call from my biggest client. We're terminating our contract effective immediately. We can't be associated with personal drama. Then a meeting with my law partners that ended with, take a leave of absence, indefinitely. But Tuesday, I'd lost my family, my job, my reputation and my mind. But the real punishment was just getting started. 6 months later I was living in a studio apartment that smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams, getting supervised visits with my sons twice a week at a family center that felt like prison. The divorce papers were brutal but fair. Sarah got the house, primary custody, and half of everything I'd worked 20 years to build. I got weekends in a room with a social worker watching my every move, making sure I didn't corrupt my children any further than I already had. Lisa had disappeared completely after destroying my. Turns out she'd been married too, something I never bothered to find out during our 4-month fantasy. Her husband found out about us the same day Sarah did, and they'd worked together to document everything for their respective divorces. I was just collateral damage in someone else's marriage war. The boys barely looked at me during our visits. They'd answer my questions with one-word responses and spend most of the time drawing pictures or playing with toys, anything to avoid eye contact with the man who used to be their hero. Why can't we go home with? Jake asked during one particularly brutal session. Because I don't live in our house anymore, buddy, remember? But why can't just move back? How to explain to an 8-year-old that some mistakes can't be undone? That some trust, once broken, never gets repaired. Because mommy doesn't trust daddy anymore, and she has every right to feel that way. Michael, always the sharp one, looked from his coloring book. Do still love the other lady? There is no other lady anymore, Mike, and I never loved her the way I love in Jake and mommy. Then why did pick her? Out of the mouths of. The question that haunted me every single night in my empty apartment. I was selfish and I thought I deserved something I didn't deserve. I was wrong about everything. Sarah started dating someone new around month 8. A guy named David who coached Little League and volunteered at the animal shelter, and probably never had a selfish thought in his entire. The boys loved him. David taught us how to throw a slider. Jake told me during one of our supervised visits, more animated than he'd been in months. He makes really good pancakes, Michael added. And he doesn't work on weekends. Each innocent comment was in my chest. This man was becoming the father I should have been, living in the house I used to live in, sleeping next to the woman I away. I wanted to him but I couldn't. He was everything I'd failed to be. Present, faithful, worthy of my family's love. My parents stopped calling after the divorce was finalized. The scandal had embarrassed them in their church, their neighborhood, their entire social circle. Even Marcus, golden boy Marcus, had achieved something I never could, not destroying his family for a piece of. The law firm made my leave of absence permanent. Character issues, they called it. None of my former clients would work with me. Word travels fast in our city's legal community. I ended doing document review for a legal temp agency, sitting in a windowless room making a quarter of what I used to make, surrounded by other lawyers who'd their careers in various spectacular ways. The guy next to me, Dave, had been caught embezzling. The woman across from me, Janet, had been disbarred for sleeping with clients. We were the island of misfit attorneys, and I fit right in. What story? Dave asked during my first week. Cheated on my wife. Lost everything. He nodded like I told him my coffee order. Classic. How long we're married? 15 years. Kids. Twin boys. Osh. That's rough, man. They should. Nah, kids forgive easier than adults. It's gotta worry about. Shield them against for years. But Sarah didn't them against me. She was too good of a person for that. She never mouthed me in front of the boys. Never tried to turn them against me. She answered their questions honestly but without venom. That almost made it worse. Her grace highlighted my ugliness. Her strength showed my weakness. She was handling our family's destruction with dignity while I wallowed in self-pity and cheap. Year 2 post the supervised visits ended. I was allowed to take the boys for weekends, but they felt like strangers. They had inside jokes I didn't understand, references to experiences I wasn't part of, a hole that existed without me. David had moved in with Sarah. The boys called him Dave, but I could see the affection in their faces when they talked about him. He was becoming their real father while I was becoming the weekend obligation. Dave's teaching us to drive stick shift in the empty parking lot at the school. Michael told me one Saturday, guys are 9, can't drive yet. We know, but Dave says it's good to practice the clutch part now so when we're old enough it'll be easier. Dave was thinking about their future. Planning ahead. Being a real dad while I was just trying to make it through the weekend without crying in front of them. I started drinking more. Not during my time with I wasn't that far gone, but every other night in my studio apartment, trying to numb the reality of what I'd become. A part-time father, a cautionary tale. A man who'd had everything and thrown it away for nothing. The final nail came during year 3. Sarah and David were getting married. We wanted to hear it from us first, Sarah said when she called. Her voice was kind but distant. The ceremony will be small, just family. Are the boys okay with it? They're excited. David's been more of a father to them than. She stopped herself, but we both knew how that sentence ended. Then I have been. I didn't say that. Didn't have to. The boys were excited. They got to be ring bearers in their mother's second wedding. The wedding to the man who'd stepped in to clean the mess I'd made of their lives. I wasn't invited. Of course I wasn't invited. But I drove by the church that day anyway like some pathetic, and watched through the window as my former family celebrated their new beginning. Sarah looked radiant. The boys looked happy. David looked like a man who deserved the family he was getting. I looked like a man watching us through glass, forever on the outside of something beautiful that used to be mine. That night I sat in my apartment with a bottle of whiskey, and finally understood the full price of my choices. I hadn't just cheated on my wife. I'd cheated my sons out of their father. I'd cheated out of watching them grow. I'd cheated us all out of the family we could have been. For what? 4 months with a woman who didn't give about me. 4 months of feeling important to someone who was just using me for her own revenge. I traded 20 years of real love for 4 months of fantasy. And now I was living with the math of that decision every single day. The boys were 11 now. They had a stepfather who loved them, a mother who was happier than she'd been in years, and a biological father who saw them every other weekend and couldn't figure out how to connect with the strangers they'd become. Sometimes Jake would look at me during our visits with this expression I couldn't quite read. Not anger, not sadness, just disappointment, like he was trying to understand how the man who used to be his hero had turned into this hollow shell of weekend obligations and awkward conversations. I'd lost everything that mattered for something that never existed in the first place. The promotion that started it all. Meaningless now. Senior partner of nothing, father no one, husband to nobody. Lisa had used me and discarded me, but I couldn't even blame her entirely. She hadn't forced me to betray my family. She just provided the opportunity for me to show who I really was underneath all my promises and wedding vows. I was a man who would trade his children's happiness for his own momentary pleasure. A man who would destroy everything good in his because he felt sorry for himself at a family party. A man who valued his ego more than his family. The whiskey burned going down, but not as much as the truthy. I'd gotten exactly what I deserved. I had chosen this. Every step of the way I'd chosen this. And now sitting alone in my studio apartment while my ex-wife and my sons celebrated Christmas morning with the man who'd replaced me, I finally understood the real cost of infidelity. It's not just losing marriage. It's losing place in children's story, watching them build memories with someone else. Becoming a footnote in the family used to lead. It's knowing that somewhere across town, ex-wife is making pancakes for the kids while her new husband reads them the Sunday comics, and her eating cereal alone, counting the hours until next supervised visit. It's realizing that the family photos on their mantle don't include anymore, and they shouldn't. Because when cheat on wife, don't just betray her trust. Rob children of their father, and everything they'll never get back. The promotion letter is still in a box somewhere in my closet, a reminder of the success that felt so important that I destroyed my chasing recognition that meant nothing. My sons don't even know I'm a lawyer, to them. I'm just the sad man who picks them every other weekend and tries too hard to make for being a stranger in their lives. When they're older, when they understand what I did to their mother, they'll meet properly. Right now they're just confused about why their real dad feels like a visitor in their story. But someday they'll understand that some choices echo forever, and some mistakes become the only legacy leave behind. I cheated because I felt invisible, and now I'm invisible to the only people who ever really mattered. Walking warning about what happens when confuse being wanted with being loved, and when trade the real thing for a reflection in someone else's temporary attention.